In your perfect state, you're immortal. Same thing is true with the third eye chakra. It is as much a CEO in its natural state, and obviously they love us. Welcome, YouTube, back to another amazing day here in Seattle, and we're covering leadership strategies for planetary evolution and the evolution of the CEO position as a whole. I'd like to start off with a little bit of homework for the class. Now that you've all gotten situated with the books, I really would like you to go ahead and make an effort, read through them maybe just once, specifically with the Book of Stones, and go through and really start marking out ones that you're going to pick out. You can purchase online or at local crystal shops or rock shops, and really start collecting a handful of them and meditating with them. So there's a lot of different techniques for that. The main goal, though, is that we really want to start energizing the upper chakras, the heart, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra, so that those parts are going to be functional, active, and useful. A lot of it is going to be intuitive. A lot of it will follow a very distinct pattern that you'll be conscious of as far as color organizing goes. The lighter violets and purple colors are more than likely going to be associated with crown chakra activation. The same is true with azure colors, and darker blues will be for the third eye chakras. And for the Vishuddha chakra, throat chakra, you have your turquoise and lighter blue colors. So really go through, make a list of stones that you'd like to pick up, or crystals that you'd like to pick up, make them part of your collection, and also look at materials and be cautious about that, because a lot of them are substances that you might not be comfortable with around your body yet. So that's a word of caution. Always check what the materials are made out of before you place them on your body, so that you are safe in your processes. Just to name a few, to really get your third eye activated, opened up, a really wonderful starter stone to evolve your third eye system with is going to be azurite, and it's a really dark blue, rich blue color. You can get a cabochon, or if you have it made into a piece of jewelry, just place it over the third eye and start meditating with it. Maybe before you go to sleep, or early in the day before you have breakfast, just to get a little extra stimulation on it. And I'll go through a list of other ones here. Build a concept that throughout all of history, while we've started to collect and mine and unearth parts of these stones, we've also had opportunities to experiment with them continually. So every single stone that we've had on the planet Earth in some form has been amassed in large quantity, built into forms of jewelry that cover the entire body, and then experimented with and exercised with through psychic activation and psychic body stimulation. When we're thinking of original meditation or basic meditation, we put small stones over the third eye to activate them. In full psychic education, what we need to really pull together is that the entire body can be covered in that one specific element, and it will have a productive value for the whole body's evolution as a whole. And that's been practiced with throughout years, throughout history. So we go all the way back to some of the earliest third eye activation stones, and we see lapis lazuli, I think, is used in Egyptian jewelry all the way back to, predating tens of thousands of years ago, other ancient civilizations. Another really wonderful stone that is going to be a key component tool that you'll want to actually definitely have in your collection, and this kind of is going to be a segue into chakra mechanics. And you'll start to recognize that specific stones will show up into your universe. They'll make themselves present when they need to be part of your collection so that you can further evolve. It's a stepping stone. It's like finding new water, or you go shopping at the mall sometimes and you find a new piece of clothing. So it's like finding a new brand. That's how stones will present themselves to you in the psychic activation sense. So when your third eye is open to a specific level, say you've mastered lapis lazuli, or to some extent you've mastered azurite, the next stone will make itself apparent to you. So a really powerful one is going to be quantum quattro. And you can kind of build a principle that a lot of the names themselves may have been in other forms, might have scientific names, some might be given names that are useful to them, and that's really what you're going to start evolving. So quantum quattro is exactly that. What it's going to do is quantize and pull together the heart chakra, the 4 system, and it's colored exactly like that. It's a mix of 4 banded stones, but it's going to help you in your logic state conceptualize that the number 4 is associated specifically with the heart chakra and the quantization of that process, so that you can move from, in your evolution, if you have active or semi-active chakras, or maybe they're not active at all and they're just dormant and operating in the 3-2-1 state of the grounding system, that it's going to take that logic state 4, the number 4, in all the parts of your universe that you've experienced, and quantize it so that you can move a high gravitational state, being that the root portion of your chakras are active, to a low gravitational state, and that's where the higher portion of your chakras are going to be activated: the third eye, psychics, heart, throat chakra, crown chakra. That's a really important tool. You have to have it because it's going to evolve those specific terms in your universe. So really conceptualize that. If your universe has physics or sciences that evolved directionally, they're going to represent themselves, but they're also going to be bound by gravitation in degrees. So it's going to be either higher gravitation or low gravitation, and it really depends on the planet you're on, and it really depends on the time period you're at as well, and how healthy your life form is. So it all follows together. So let me talk a little bit more about chakra mechanics, and I will try to move a little bit more into fluid communication. There's so many different ways to refer to chakras. A really quick way is just to organize them by numbers or letters, so 1 through 7, and I'll use them intermittently so that you can pick up on that and learn the different terminology. Chakra mechanics can be looked at in different modalities and different systems depending on the food, and we've talked about this before. They'll exist in specific states, and you can have all the states and apply them as so. So if you would like vegetarian chakras or vegan chakras, you can have those. What you need to be cautious of is the non-vegetarian chakra systems and how they've evolved. So if you're following a specific set or type of evolution and you're looking at a deity or position or person in history that's represented chakras for you, be very cautious about the types of food they eat, if they were completely vegetarian, and then also check the leadership style itself. So as a 7 leader, you're specifically here to build heart sensitivity to the highest 7 balance position. Look in the hands, look at the body. What kind of things do they possess? What images are they representing? Because in total human evolution, you should start to kind of pick up on the concept that karmic evolution has a fluid sense to it. So in your perfect state, you're immortal. You have perfected reciprocation in the external. So you're able to create your own sense of your field, your own energetic divine intervention continually through your lifespan's existence. And your physical human body, or whatever life form's body you have, is going to reflect that on the psychic level. So it just will physically repair itself, change itself continually. So that should be something that you start to generate as an idea, a thought, that the existence of life itself is you as an immortal spirit, being, human, or whatever being or entity you have, and you can live for longer than you could perceive if this is new knowledge or new information for you in your physical body, and it's part of the psychic process. So, and again, this will become more apparent as you remove parts of high gravitational systems from your chakra energy body, because you'll be able to perceive higher chakra activation, and it's really like peering into the future because it's part of your evolution. So it's deep within the core of you knowledge that is going to be evoked, and that's a beautiful thing. Let me move to 7 leadership specifically, and planetary leadership. And what we're dealing with here on the planet Earth is our capacity to conceptualize our own evolution. From a distance, if you live off the planet it's very obvious, and you could kind of approach it like you here on Earth may be able to observe another species from the safety and security of your own universe, and create your own story for them, and create your own belief systems about them, and really connect with them. The same is true with higher evolved species off the planet Earth, and it requires just as much sensitivity, dedication, and commitment. At the same time, you're really learning how to connect with something that is not of the same species, maybe visually, because of the physical body vessel that you're operating. From a distance, we are observed continually, and what we face currently now is our capacity and ability to manage and operate those large planetary chakra energy systems as they come at us, as they activate within us, as we use their energy continually. The overview of ethics comes into play, and this is a really key issue, and it has to do specifically with technology and technology integration, that you're responsible as an evolved being for the introduction that you have of technology to other species in a karmic state that physically affects your life form's potential, its existence. Again, in high karmic states, because you've reciprocated positivity so well, it's enabled your being, your body, to exist in its state of immortality. And the same is true for other species in reciprocation. So they observe us in the same direct way, and also as evolution requires them to make gains in their own evolution. So the ethics of the introduction of their technology into our society is as much a product of management and strategy and decisive planning, or it costs their evolution a great deal. And obviously they love us, so it's a really obvious connection. So how do we bridge that up? Well, through history, we can start to observe cycles, and I talked about this before, and I'll show on the screen more maps of involuntary planetary activations because of our logic states and how we count, and how those dormant chakras still activate. But if they're dormant, they have gravitational states, so they can be in two forms. They can be in induction or projection, and the inactive third eye chakra itself is an induction system. So it's like the intake on a vehicle or intake on your lungs. You're bringing in energy more than you are projecting it out, because it's in a dormant state, it's a grounded state, and it funnels through that way. But the universe that the being is going to experience in that state is again, it's grounded, so it costs more energy than the experience that might be desired from a fully active chakra system, one that projects in a low gravitational state or non-gravitational state. If we go through history, we have, and I'm just going to use the last 100 years because it's really when the non-terrestrial beings started to communicate and recognize that we had fast evolution technology that was starting to pair with our capacity of our physical human body's evolution because of these involuntary activations. If we go through 1900 to 1910, we would cover the same one cycle system, so that's a Mercury set. Then we go from, or actually it's going to be one lower, so it's going to be a grounding set, and I'll talk more about that. There's a Earth star which is actually below the ground. It's another chakra, and there are more chakras, but focusing on the 7 is really fundamental. So there's a 20-year time span, there's the lowest grounding years that are involuntarily activated. Then we have the 20s, so it goes to the 2 system, the Venus system, 1920 to 1929, and then we have 1930 to 1939, and that's going to be the solar plexus chakra activation system for a decade. Then we have 1940 through 1949, and that's where you really start to pick up on the health of the Anahata chakra itself and how it reciprocates and also involuntarily activates. So if we go back and look at 1940 to 1949, on an energetic level, the planetary chakras for Anahata were involuntarily activating, and it takes into consideration the directionism of that evolution. because the health of the physical human body, the food that they were consuming at that time period, was in the state that it was of nutrition through our evolution, it had a great effect, a great deal of influence on the type of universe induction that occurred with third eye chakra systems. And you could clearly see that depiction. And we follow other very powerful but obvious synchronicities through the years. So if we go through 1950 to 1959, that's a Vishuddha chakra year, the throat chakra. And I'll probably do an entire video specifically just on Vishuddha throat chakra systems, because they have a really unique capacity in the sense that they function with sound systems. So it's an added ability to essentially align physical atomic structures on the human body. When we think of speech or voice, it really has physical vibration, and that also has a correspondence with the chakra system itself. So it's an alignment technique, essentially. If you look at 5 or even Pentagon, you think about it, it's a Jupiter gravity system, and it's there to accumulate, but it also exists in a high gravitational state. So Vishuddha chakra is powerful, but it's your last defense as a planet to kind of pull together what we have as chakra systems internally. That state can change, and the productive value of its system can change completely. So conceptualize that when you start activating the third eye chakra. And the third eye chakra is very powerful. In its induction state, though, it's, again, very grounding. And it can be very costly as well, and almost instantaneous, because it physically is a quantum system. It's a particle accumulator, and it can also be a projection system. So it's in the CEO state. We think of the helm of a company manages and operates a large body or a degree of a body of people organizing themselves, and the company's actions and interactions and types of decisions that they make. The same thing is true with the third eye chakra. It is as much a CEO in its natural state, because it's operating your travel through a field that, if you're not conscious of it, again, activating the astral body energy helps you perceive this third eye field, has a lot of different things that can arise from it. It's literally the equivalent of transporting yourself through dimensions continually, but at a rapid rate, the speed that the galaxy is traveling through. So, 500,000 miles plus an hour, and perceive that. So things can change. An entire planet can shift a dimension instantaneously from your position as a third eye user. So that brings a whole nother realm of responsibility. And again, why we're starting with heart and crown, because being able to balance the heart sensitivity is your ultimate communication system. Even though the Vishuddha chakra itself is high gravitational, very aligning, the one thing that is going to really permeate all forms of communication is going to be even faster, the speed of love. And that's going to be directly communicated through the Anahata chakra, the 4D. Moving on, we have the next set of years. We have 1960 to 1969, and psychologically we have the third eye chakra ingrained. So it's a bright blue system, and really conceptualize what happens there and what manifested there within those years of 1960 to 1969 globally. Is it blue? And it generally, unless all the chakras are activated, it's in a state of induction. So it's like slow progression, slow movement. In the fluid state of highly activated chakra systems globally, we can put buildings together essentially just with light projection. You're able to move the physical atomic structure around you safely and efficiently as a collective species. That's really what we can look ahead to as we're kind of guiding and leading our species through evolution, is a completely different kind of human power itself. And that's a really beautiful thing. Then we look at 1970, 1979. That's going to be your crown chakra years. And so those will be the highest balancing positions, and just naturally balancing. And again, I talked more about directional evolution, gravitational systems, and the body vessels themselves. So within those years, it was likely easier for the rest of the population who were not using crown chakras, and probably very strenuous and challenging for the people that had evolved their chakras for those 7 leader positions globally. And think of governance and parts of royalty globally, governing states that use chakra systems daily had to essentially balance and hold up positions for the rest of the human species. And then we move into some other chakras, and I'm not going to talk about those very much in this video. I will in other videos, and they do have effects. But recognizing locally as an evolving human species how those specific years activate chakras helps us better manage and organize the chakra energy systems. So again, I said you're the energy CEO, but you're operating the planetary systems so that we have safe uses of the energy value. In the last video I talked specifically about this, and it's a really important idea, and you really should formulate it, is the refinement process of our identity system. So how we associate specific colors in our surroundings is going to influence how we physically use those chakras. So it can be a big issue, because we naturally like to color things because it helps us respond and react to things. At the same time, if the associations aren't continually directly reinforced, you think of repetition. I was talking about how many times you eat vegetarian food can add up to a year of eating over a 70-year period. That's a lot of time spent visualizing. The same thing is true for the chakra color systems. So energy refinement, in the definition I'm providing, is going to be that process of going through color systems, reintegrating them so that they can be consciously associated with the chakra systems themselves, so that you can use third eye systems more productively. From a distance, when you are outside of this specific solar system, this becomes very obvious. So again, you need to conceptualize that we as a evolving species here on the planet Earth are being observed with the same degree of caution, because it's sensitive. Picture, you wouldn't necessarily just jump into an anthill and supply them with a bunch of technology because they were curious about it, because you have to consciously build a way that that's going to be sustainable so that the reciprocation is powerful, or it won't exist. That plays a large role in what I'm doing here and what you're specifically doing here as a 7 leader, as an evolving 7 leader, is to bring this kind of knowledge and information and integrate it into your business, into your society, your social groups and surroundings, so that you can help stimulate and supply better balanced heart systems for the coming years ahead. And specifically, when I started to study the sciences and this information was brought to my attention, immediately I was like, wow, I need to talk to my government about this. So I talked directly to the Pentagon to kind of bring that knowledge to them, so that they have, even if it's not functional in the sense that they can consciously perceive it or integrate it, that we have a way to protect ourselves. Because what we face now is the same 100-year cycle. In 2040 to 2049, we have the exact same thing happening, and it's going to be the heart chakra activation decade. And it'll have the exact same effect on an energetic system. So it's, and again, I explained it, trying to outswim gravitational systems is like being dropped into the ocean with 100-foot waves. You're just out there, and you're not going to be able to swim past a wave of Venus energy if your chakra systems weren't lined up for it. And it will show up through the third eye system instantaneously as a universe you've created. It would be like trying to build a barricade or a wall, but you've been dropped in the ocean, so it's just going to sink and it's completely useless. And that's the same thing for planetary energy systems, and they apply exactly like that through the permeation of the physical gravity system that we have in the internal body. So again, if you look at, and I'm going to just affirm that your planet or the universe that you live in already has more activated chakras than the one that I currently exist in, or perceive in perhaps. And even now I'm going to believe the one I'm existing in has more, but I have to use some practicality in the sense that the majority of the people that I interact with on this planet specifically more than likely exist in a chakra inactive state, the gravitational state, and states where the third, the second, and the first chakra themselves are active but in a drained system. So if we go through the years, the main component that we're facing is continual, and it builds up. So obviously in 2020 we had things that happened, and that was a direct Venus energy system projected through the third eye induction that manifested a universe. And the same thing happens in the next decade as well. So the 2030 through 2039, the same third eye induction system happens, and a universe will become manifested, and we'll have to manage the different capacities of them. The project, the mission, the opportunity to really balance, educate, and safely energize humanity comes from your capacity to create positive karmic systems in reciprocation for the planet. So your best method of education here today in planet Earth starts with the foods that we eat. So that process of recognizing other heart systems in life forms as being equal and at a degree of value that is worth the sensitivity of your own heart system, so that that can create balance in universes that aren't in the state of gravitational systems or fractioning, where you see the volume of the observers is reduced through meal consumption. In the state of vegetarianism or veganism, that specific universe can't exist, and it changes from fractioning systems. And you probably can observe this in science systems now, where it's just really hammering in at gravity systems, trying to create, well, what it kind of is trying to conceptualize. When it moves to the growth state or a vegan or vegetarian state, it's able to structurally root itself, the human body vessel itself, so that it can create foundations of healthier life and healthier life form evolution. So each chakra system themselves requires reintegration, color association, positivity about them. And it's a natural process through the vegetarian food consumption, because the visualizations we observe then become less gravitational and they become closer to the projection systems. When we're in a projection state, in a vegetarian projection state, we really need to observe what kind of physics are operating. And on an activated psychic third eye system, what will appear in the physical universe is called materialization, and there's part of the psychic brain system observed beyond the solar system that can recognize this is already part of the human brain and has put a container system around it to protect us visually because of the foods that we eat. Otherwise we would just literally vaporize off the planet every time we ate food that was canceling out heart systems. So that kind of safety and security around the human brain system actually helps protect the whole species in a technology sense as we evolve safely and we grow our capacity to feed ourselves healthier foods in reciprocation. Reorganizing those color systems and color patterns is another fundamental part of it, and the sensitivity grows continually as your life form evolves. When I'm talking about a CEO position, the position itself is the capacity to maintain the food consumption, the process of growing your own balanced system. And I showed in another video, and I can show here as well, that the Anahata chakra heart system, whether we can consciously perceive it or not, exists in a state of sensitivity. The capacity for us to move past this specific planetary body system has in essence an energy container field and a system associated with it. The total range that we as a human species can travel increases the moment that we increase our Anahata heart sensitivity system and the range that it can balance. And it attaches to every human as a tether. As you become more sensitive as an evolving chakra human, or whatever species you are, you really start to pick up on high vibrational sensitivity. And at the height of it, and I'm just going to put this out there, have the idea, the modalities and the equipment internally built into you to consciously identify every human being on your planet through heart sensitivity and be able to manage it that way. And that's really important because it's going to be your fastest method to safely protect everyone, reorganize things when you need to reorganize them, position people and different parts of your leadership strategy as a whole for management, for organization. What happens then is the heart system itself becomes equivalent to all the humans on your planet, on your solar system, or maybe you're on a ship. And the Anahata system is your hands, essentially, your feelers, and you're capable to perceive and communicate to every other Anahata heart system with your brain, with your heart, with your life form itself. And that type of management almost becomes indirect. You don't have to make a lot of decisions, and it gets easier because you'll start doing the same process. You'll start reciprocating the balancing process and teaching it to other people so that they can pick up more balanced positions, so it's not just all on your one life form. And that's a really beautiful part, is when you start repeating the same process. You start evolving other people's chakra systems. In high evolutionary life forms, that's an active process continually. The evolutionary karmic state of raising another species to safe evolution that's sustainable so that they can walk around on their own and interact with you. And it's also a socialization method as well, because if we look at the entire galaxy, it's completely populated, but the populated parts that you're going to want to interact with are the parts that have evolved their life forms to be sensitive in that reciprocation, so that they've identified part systems as being equal, if not higher, for karmic evolutionary purposes, and that provides their life form with longer lifespans, with immortality, with the kind of psychic systems that you can start to kind of visualize now of materialization processes, formulating atomic structures or very small materials and very large materials directly out of your healthy third eye psychic projections. So one process that you should also be conscious of, and this might be different on your planet or universe or state that you're in, and it occurred in mine specifically, is the directionism of scientific studies themselves through all forms can be subject to the same gravitational or low gravitational systems in the directions that they are pursuing indirectly. So one that occurred, and you'll start to pick up on this more as you become more conscious of time travel in your physical human body, is the existence of, and they call it on this planet specifically, quantum entanglement. The idea is that on the quantum level, the smallest possible level, the heart systems, the universe systems, the parts of the anahata that may have been fractioned, connect and join to kind of create a unified position so that the universes can still communicate. It's like a last defense kind of thing. And in the healthy state, what you'll start observing as you eat purple cabbage is the reverse process of that. And I'm going to call it quantum disentanglement because it's essentially the reverse process. And you'll pick up on this almost immediately. After my first or second year of eating purple cabbage, it just became very apparent that my life form was heading in a different direction. And you start to repiece those parts of the heart systems together. The sciences that existed in the past for me specifically actually fade out and stop being a process as the consciousnesses of the people that, or beings that were studying those specific directionisms, and even in part entangled with my own life form, changed their direction. So it starts evolving. You start carrying the education with you in a physical energy structure. So the disentanglement process is a little bit different because it's kind of like inflating a balloon. You're filling it up with a life form or a life force or energy systems balance, essentially, as a heart chakra balancer, and they'll start appearing differently. So that's really where you start to observe more of the process of time travel, and it will appear in a lot of different ways. One of the main ways that it's going to show up in is through the specific connection of the entanglement of the other heart system. So in quantum entanglement, the hearts have quantized, and they're trying to find their ultimate evolution through magnification, because it's a process that is directional so that they can sustain themselves. In the same process, as you start balancing, your heart system becomes stronger, but the entangled heart systems of your whole globe, your whole species, start to rely on your balance. They really start to connect with you because you provide for them a sensitivity, a security, again, that nurturing part of human evolution that we protect so much on the energetic heart level becomes the life force for them. It becomes what they have to fuel themselves off of as a whole species, as we do as a whole species. And likely that happens for my physical body as well, as I had to go through similar processes of evolution. So you start to build that energy system, and you'll become more connected to other things. What happens, though, is the equivalent of trying to change the direction of a large planetary body, because that's what you're doing. So if we needed to like change the course of an entire star and just be like, instead of going left, you're going to go right or up or down, it's that equivalent. The entire universe has heart momentum through sustainability processes that other life forms are trying to connect with you, and it just absolutely goes right through other physics systems. So if we've built scientific structures, modalities to find or build our systems here, a lot of those can be completely bypassed. So, and that happens in a lot of different ways. And I expressed before, during parts of psionic data breaching, you observe the physical reality pulling itself down, and you'll kind of experience that same thing with time travel itself, where specific historical events from your perspective will start to shift as you gain more balance. The history that you may have remembered shifts with you through all the physical life forms that you're interacting around. It won't be obvious to another life form because they actually have to provide their existence off of a heart source system, something to connect with continually. And that's a beauty of the time travel leadership position, is that you are going to move through time, the history systems will change and adjust, and you may be the only one who's going to be conscious of it. And that's okay.